Hey guys, it's Jimmy here. Hope that you're doing extremely well. And I want to make this video because so many of you have been asking me about introducing yourself in a confident way. Now, the problem that a lot of people have is that when they want to introduce themselves, they feel awkward. And you can probably resonate with this, right? Like sometimes people ask you in all types of situations, hey, so tell me about yourself. So what do you do? And often what happens is you get those questions when you least expect them. Imagine you're sitting at a big table with a lot of people, just having a great conversation, talking about all types of different things. And then as you are chewing your food, mouthful, someone looks at you and asks you, hey, Elizabeth or John or whatever your name is, so what do you do? Tell us your story. And you're still chewing. Everyone is looking at you. The question is, what do you say? Now, a lot of people message me saying that they literally get panicky in those situations. A lot of people literally feel like they are having a panic attack because there's a pressure on them, everyone is looking at them, and the question is, what will they say? And it can get very awkward. Now, it's not that bad in social life, but it can get very awkward and very uncomfortable in business situations. And of course, in business, first impression really matters. So when you meet someone, when people ask you right from the get-go, so what do you do? If you don't know what you're gonna say, if you don't feel comfortable with what you're gonna say, you are not very likely to leave a good first impression. So it is really important to get this area of your life handled. Now, the interesting thing, and you can probably resonate with this, is that because a lot of people feel uncomfortable making introductions, they never take enough time to really work on that area of their lives. You see, us humans, we are a bit weird because when we struggle with something, rather than going after it and figuring, hey, you know what, I'm struggling with this area of my life, I gotta fix it, I gotta do something about it, we tend to run away from it. We tend to pretend that there is no problem. Just like, you have an argument with someone, and maybe some things haven't been said, and you know that there's something in the air, and you should resolve it. It's sometimes easier to pretend that everything is fine. Everything is fine, as long as we don't talk about it, everything is fine. But it's never fine, right? Things are under the rug. And that's why, rather than running away from the situation, when you struggle with introducing yourself, you have to face it head on, and you have to figure out how you can do it in a powerful way. So in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what you can do to make it a reality. Because again, I got so many messages from you guys, and some stories are just incredible, right? Like I heard stories of people who, again, literally get a panic attack in those situations. I got stories from people who start talking and talking and talking, and they cannot stop because when people get nervous, they start talking really fast. Okay, there are all types of stories. So my goal for this video is to give you a blueprint for making your introductions easy. And not just that, I want to create a situation where you will feel excited when someone asks you, hey, so what do you do? Tell me about yourself. Tell me your story. Now, for the record, I used to feel very uncomfortable when people ask me, what do you do? Who are you? What is your story? And the simple reason for me was that, on the one hand, you don't want to sound like you are showing off, so you don't want to talk about your accomplishments. Like in my case, I didn't really feel comfortable telling people about how many students I teach or how many countries I've been to or some of the things that I do, right? But then on the other hand, you don't want to talk about yourself too much. You don't want to go into too much detail when it comes to your personal life, right? So it's very hard to navigate through those dynamics because you feel like you don't want to be too short, but then you don't want to talk for too long. You don't want to sound show-offy, but then you don't want to get too personal. So you get very confused and you don't know what to say. And when you don't know what to say, usually what happens is you gravitate to your default. And your default is usually a very short answer that is accurate, but not fully accurate and doesn't really give people the big picture, right? So in my case, when people ask me over the years, hey, Jimmy, so what do you do? What is your business about? I would usually say something in the lines of, I have an online business. I build video courses and I travel full time. And that was it. And sometimes people would ask me, oh, really? What type of business? What types of courses? And I would follow up on that, but in some cases, people wouldn't ask any follow-up questions, right? You meet people, there's a dinner, and someone asks you, hey, so what do you do? And they expect a longer answer, but because I would just say in a very brash, very quick way, Yeah, I have an online business. I build video courses and I travel full time. Oh, cool. Oh, what was your favorite place you traveled to? And then the conversation goes into that direction. I feel like I lost a lot of opportunities because of that, because I wasn't prepared, especially in business. Now, in social life, it's not a big deal, right? Someone asks you, what do you do? What is your story? Whichever way you answer, it's fine, right? You just keep going. But if you're in a business situation, if you, let's say, go to a business event and a CEO of a successful company asks you, hey, Jimmy, so what is it that you do? If you simply say, I build video courses and I travel and yeah, that's it. It doesn't really give them a lot of wiggle room to ask you follow-up questions, right? And in a lot of cases, people just won't ask you more. They won't be interested. You haven't really made it compelling enough. So what you want to do is you want to create a situation that when people ask you, what do you do? What is your story in various situations in life? You give them an answer that's straight, but that's compelling, that propels people to want to find out more, right? When you answer that question, you want people to feel like, wow, this is really interesting. I'm wondering, what does that mean? I want to find out more. And as you're watching this video now, you're probably wondering, okay, give it to me. I want to know how to do it. I'll give it to you, okay? Bear with me, I'm gonna tell you how to make it happen. Let me start with my example before I tell you my process, okay? So, look, over the years, I've been honing this process and I've been trying to figure out how I can introduce myself in a better way. Now, I have to say right away that I don't just memorize a set introduction. I believe in knowing yourself so well and knowing how you want to be perceived by people, what elements of your life you want to showcase, so you can do it on a spot, right? And it also comes with practice. So I believe in practicing your introductions. So when you enter various situations of life, when people ask you that golden or feared question in some cases, when people ask you, what do you do? What is your story? You can calibrate extremely well. And because you practice so many times, you know that whatever answer you give will sound really smooth. So I came to the point where, for example, if you ask me now in a social situation, hey Jimmy, so what is this that you do? I would probably make it very simple, very short, and I would give you some room for follow-up questions. But if you ask me on a podcast interview, hey Jimmy, so what is it that you do? What is your story? I would actually tell you about my mission. I would tell you, hey, everything I do is connected to my mission, which is about helping millions of people with their psychological issues, with their limiting beliefs. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I used to struggle with limiting beliefs, with anxiety, with confidence issues, and I know how debilitating it feels. And this is what led me to build a lot of video courses and speak on various stages and do podcasting and do interviews like this one. But then over the years, executives and company owners and entrepreneurs started asking me, hey Jimmy, how come you teach so many people? How did you attract hundreds of thousands of people into your courses? How do you do that? And this led me to also help business owners and entrepreneurs in expanding their online presence and building powerful video courses and being more confident on camera and all types of things like that. So this is the angle I would take, right? This is how I would do my introduction. But then if I was in a business setting, if let's say I was at a business conference and an executive of a successful company asked me, hey Jimmy, so what do you do? What is your story? I wouldn't really focus that much about helping millions of people and about the adventure part of my story. I would focus on what's relevant to that person, right? So if I see a business executive in front of me, I'm thinking to myself, okay, how could I help that person? What is relevant to them? And I know that what's definitely relevant is that a lot of business executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs struggle with expanding their online presence. And a lot of people struggle with being confident in front of the camera because there is a tremendous pressure, because they know that they are in a position of power. So everyone expects them to be confident. Everyone expects them to do well. So I would probably address that. And so to give you a real example, let's say I'm at a conference and a CEO of a big company asks me, hey, Jimmy, so what do you do? I'd probably say something to the lines of, I do a variety of things. I've been building video courses over the years helping people with their psychological issues, but then over the years, a lot of executives and all types of entrepreneurs started asking me, how come you managed to attract hundreds of thousands of people to your courses? How do you do that? And by the way, how can you be confident in front of the camera? I really struggle with that because I feel like everyone expects me to do well as a CEO of a company. How do I actually become more confident? And I never really chose to do it myself, but people came to me, and this is why I decided to help people with those types of issues. So this is what I do in a nutshell. I help leaders to become more confident presenters and to establish their online presence, for example, with powerful video courses, right? This could be my answer to that executive at a conference, because I know that when she hears that answer, she can think, oh, wow, that sounds really compelling. Maybe this guy can actually teach me right now in this conversation, how can I be more confident? Or how can I build my online presence? And guess what? I'm more than happy to help her. And I also know that if I give her enough value, she may end up telling me, you know what? I love this conversation. I learned so much. Here's my business card. Please send me an email. I would love to work with you. I'd love to see what your company does. Maybe there is something we could do together, okay? So this is exactly what you want to do in your life. You want to calibrate. You don't just want to introduce yourself in the same way to various people. You always want to calibrate, and you want to ask yourself, what is relevant in that particular situation? Okay, so now that you know that, let's talk about the process. How do you get started? So what I recommend you to do, and this is going to be powerful on so many different levels. Take a piece of paper or open your notepad, and in the middle, put down your name, or you can even draw yourself. If you know how to draw, go for it, draw yourself. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think very deeply about every single thing, every single way that you could describe yourself. Who are you, right? Ask yourself this question, who am I? Are you a business owner? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a self-starter? Are you an artist? Are you a father, a mother, a son? Right? Think about various things. Don't just limit yourself to business, but think about various realms and ask yourself, how could you describe yourself? And don't spend just a minute or two on this exercise. Take a lot of time. Really think about yourselves holistically. So when I was doing this exercise recently, and I say recently is because I believe that you should revisit this exercise frequently, because we keep changing as human beings, right? We keep adding to our arsenal of experience and skills and knowledge. So you should revisit this exercise. But recently when I was doing it, I was thinking to myself, wow, there's so many things I'm thinking about that I haven't thought about for such a long time. Like, for example, one thing that came up was that I used to be actually a professional swimmer. At some point, I was a lifeguard when I was a teenager, and I'm still a pretty good swimmer. And that came up, and I put it in there. I'm a coach, and for a long time, I haven't even thought about it. Another thing that came up that I haven't thought about for a long time was the fact that I speak 5 languages. And this is something that I sometimes take for granted. And, often when I travel with people and I meet individuals from various countries and I juggle between languages, sometimes people scratch their heads and they're like, hey, wait a second, how many languages do you speak? Like, well, you speak Spanish, you speak Italian, Portuguese, like what else do you speak? And people are really shocked. But I took it for granted at some point. To me, it's kind of normal. Well, I speak 5 languages, not a big deal. But when I was doing this exercise, I realized, well, this is a big part of who I am, because it wasn't always like this, and I learned those languages in a very peculiar way by traveling the world and speaking to real people. So without talking too much about me, these are just examples. But the point is that when you're doing this exercise, when you're jotting down various things about yourself, you get to know yourself better. Because what's going to happen is when you have that piece of paper in front of you, later on after performing this exercise, you can look down and you see yourself holistically. You can see who you are. You get a better picture, you get a big picture of who you are as a person. And that's going to help you to craft your introductions, okay? So this is the first part, okay? Bam. First part is done. Of course, make sure you pause this video, ideally do this. And now let's go to part 2. So part 2 is you want to ask yourself, okay, how do I want people to perceive me in various situations of life? What do I want to convey? How do I want to come across, right? So when you look at all of those different characteristics of yourself, you got to ask yourself a question, what do you want people to know about you in various situations, right? Because again, as I said at the beginning, you will not have just one introduction. You will have various introductions for various situations. So ask yourself, okay, if someone asks you, what do you do? And you are in a social setting, what do you want people to know about you? Do you really want them to know about your business? Or perhaps do you want them to know a little bit about your business, but primarily about who you are as a person? What makes you tick, right? And this is a very big distinction here. So ask yourself that question. Now think about a business situation. When you meet someone in a business setting, what do you want them to know about you? Look at that list of your characteristics and ask yourself, what should those people know about me? Now, going back to my case, in business situation, I want people to know that I have a solid track record of building best-selling video courses. I spoke on various stages, and this is why I'm well equipped to help them to do exactly the same, right? So if they want to build a video course, they want to establish their online presence or become a more confident presenter, I'm their go-to person. That's what I want them to know. I probably don't need them to know that I speak 5 languages. It's not relevant to them, it's business. But on the flip side, if I'm in a social situation, my friends don't need to know, my new friends don't need to know that I sold X number of courses or that I spoke on various stages. That's not relevant in my social situation. So again, when you think about your own examples, ask yourself what is relevant and jot those things down. And what I want you to do is, based on the bullet points that you have in there, based on those keywords, based on what you want people to know about you in various situations, I want you to draft, literally just draft how you would introduce yourself, having those bullet points, those keywords in there. Don't make it perfect, just drive a couple of sentences. Imagine that someone asks you, hey, so what do you do? Tell me about yourself. What would you say? Just write down a couple of ideas. And now, this is the second part. Now, the third step is a little bit counterintuitive because a lot of people don't do things this way. But I feel like when you want to learn how to talk, when you want to learn how to introduce yourself in a compelling way, you cannot do it just by writing things down or just by thinking. If you want to become a better communicator, you do it by communicating, right? You want to talk in a more compelling way, you learn it by talking. So what you want to do is you want to read what you have, and then you want to go for a nice long walk. You put your headphones in, and I want you to literally talk to yourself. And I know it may sound crazy, right? But you want to literally imagine that someone is asking you, hey, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And practice answering that question based on the notes you have. Just do it. Just talk out loud to yourself. Now, the reason you want to have headphones is because as you are walking, people will not think that you are crazy. They will simply assume that you are on a phone call. Nobody will assume that you are talking to yourself. People will simply think, oh, he or she is doing a phone call. Not a big deal. But in reality, you are literally talking to yourself. You are practicing. Now, if you don't want to go for a walk, you can do it in the comfort of your own home. I just feel like when you are walking, when you are out there, when you're breathing in the fresh air, it allows your creativity to flow. But I understand everyone has a different situation. You can do it from your bedroom or from your office. It's up to you. But the point is you have to speak those things out loud, right? So ask yourself, okay, think about this. I'm in a social situation and someone asks me, hey, what do you do? So who are you? Tell me your story. Speak it, right? Don't make it perfect. Don't worry about perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. Speak it. Talk about it, right? And as you are verbalizing your thoughts, some things will feel better than others. You will resonate with certain things and you won't resonate with other things. And just keep practicing. And once you go through a few rounds of practice, when you are back at your laptop or with your notepad, if you choose to use a notepad, ask yourself, what really stuck? What did I really resonate with? And write those things down, okay? Alter your draft, make it better. So for example, when I was practicing my introductions, one thing that really stuck with me was when I was talking about two major forces that are important in my life, right? One force being my mission of helping millions of people with their psychological issues. That's something that when I was saying it, I felt this warmth in my heart. I felt like, wow, I really resonate with this. This is who I am. And the second thing was living the life of adventure. So basically lifestyle design, trying to live my life in such a way that I really don't squander any time, in such a way where I make the most of every single minute of being alive. Whenever I was saying this, I just felt this warmth. I felt great. I felt this resonance. I literally felt like, wow, I truly believe in what I'm saying. So that was a sign that this is probably something that I should focus on, right? You will learn a lot by speaking things out loud. So this is so important. I know some of you don't feel comfortable with saying things out loud, but I gotta say, when you practice out loud, later on when you have a real life situation, when someone asks you, so what do you do? Especially when you don't expect it, especially when you're at that dinner table with your mouth full and someone asks you, what's your story? What do you do? Or why do you do what you do? It's gonna be so much easier for you to answer because you've practiced so much, okay? So again, that was the step 3, right? Step 3 was take that feedback from your practice and create a new draft. Amend your draft, make it better, right? Make it better. And the next thing you have to do is you just have to rinse and repeat. It's literally a never-ending process. You rinse and repeat. You practice some more, and what you want to do, ideally, and this is something that's going to help you a lot, is you want to record your introductions, okay? So you can do it both in audio and in video. Obviously, it's more comfortable with audio, but if you do it with video, it's going to give you even more benefits. So ideally, you set up your phone in front of you, and you imagine that someone asks you, hey, so what do you do? What is your story? And then you start answering that question in various ways. Again, you have all of those notes, right? You can always refer back to your one page, who you are, all of your characteristics. If you get stuck, you can refer to that. And you start answering that question in front of your phone. And then you stop the recording and you watch the video. And then you ask yourself, what do I resonate with? What looks good and what doesn't look good? And you will notice that some part of the video don't feel right. They just feel forced. It doesn't feel like it's you. And other parts flow really well. Well, that feedback is extremely valuable to you because it's going to allow you to enhance your introductions. And the reason I say it's a never-ending process is because as we go through life, we learn new things, we evolve, we start new businesses, we get into new leadership roles, right? So how we perceive ourselves and how we want people to perceive us keeps changing. It's not stagnant. It's never the same. It always keeps changing. And that's why you have to keep adjusting and keep practicing. But one thing I can tell you is that if you keep practicing, you'll get to the point that you can be in any situation of life. Whenever someone asks you that question that used to terrify you, you'll have a smile on your face because you know that you practiced it so many times. You have such a variety of answers. You have so many different angles that you get excited because you're thinking to yourself, wow, I have so many things I can say. You know exactly how to introduce yourself. And now it's just a matter of picking the right angle. But this is easy, right? You make it easy by working hard on it. Anyway, if you have any questions, I'm happy to make follow-up videos because I know that this is something that a lot of you are struggling with. I've been getting a ton of messages about this specific topic. That's why I made this video pretty long. Didn't plan to make it this long initially, but I figured, you know what? Since I'm getting so many messages, I have to go deep into it, and I'm happy to go even deeper. Just let me know, ask me specific questions. One thing I want to mention at the end as well, because this is very important, as you are crafting your introductions, make sure that you make use of storytelling, okay? Ideally, you want to use stories. So rather than just describing characteristics or describing events or describing titles and saying, hey, I do X, Y, and Z, or I am X, Y, and Z, ideally you want to use the power of storytelling. Now, when people hear the word storytelling, they often think, oh, but storytelling, well, it must take like at least 15 minutes to tell a story. No, it doesn't. You can tell a great story in 20 seconds, right? So For example, when I speak, when sometimes people ask me, hey, so what do you do? In certain contexts, for example, when I talk to conference organizers and they want me to potentially present about building confidence or overcoming fear, what I like to say is, you know what? One of the reasons why I build so many video courses nowadays and I help all of those people is because I know how debilitating it feels to struggle with confidence. In fact, I remember this one time over 10 years ago when I ran away from a stage. Imagine this. I'm sitting there, it's 2 minutes before my turn and I feel my stomach is cramping and my heart is beating faster and I have thousands of thoughts and I literally feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. And I feel like if I'm gonna stand in front of this audience, I'm just gonna pass out from fear. And guess what happens? Crazy, right? My turn comes and instead of getting on a stage, I ran away from a stage. I literally exited the room. To everyone's disbelief, people are just looking at me like I was a ghost. I literally left the room. So I shared that story. I'm not going to go into the full story now, but I share a story like this and it takes me maybe 40 seconds, maybe 1 minute, but whoever I'm talking to can see it in their head. They can imagine that story. They can imagine the pain I went through, and because I share that story, every single thing I'm talking about now is so much more powerful because they see me for a human, right? The story humanizes me. So use the power of stories whenever you can. But in order to make stories powerful, of course, you have to practice them over and over again. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, that it was not just some good food for thought, but that you actually implemented the advice from this video to improve your confidence and to feel more comfortable when introducing yourself to various people in all types of situations. Do let me know. I made it very long, but a lot of you have been asking me for it, and actually some people specifically said in your messages here on Udemy, please elaborate, don't make it short, please go as deep as possible. So I gave you everything I could. Now obviously there are different angles we could still tackle. So if there are any specific things you want me to talk about, do let me know. Always happy to make more of those videos. So hope you enjoyed it, let me know, and I want to wish you an amazing day.